Coming up on No Pulp, it was a wild weekend in the SEC craziness, and we'll let you know what to make of it.
Plus, let's talk Big 12, specifically Kansas. The Jayhawks absolutely on fire.
Jayhawks are on fire, but the Utes, the Lady Utes specifically, stumbled a couple of times in the past week. Stay tuned to hear how worried we each are. Spoiler alert, a lot.
I'm losing sleep over the Utes. Plus, I head to the Juicer to battle vaunted opponent Ryan Nelson. Should be a good one.
Only one will come out, two will enter that Juicer battle. We'll also break down some of the biggest upsets from the entire season. Get ready. No Pulp starts right now.
Sonny DeShero from Auburn. The freshman never won. The freshman never won championships.
Jeremy, you are an absolute sweat.
Cleveland the catch. Good if it goes. Oh, he hit it.
Wow, it's getting serious. Frankly, I'm pretty embarrassed.
Bang!
All day like
Hey, and welcome into the CitrusTV studios. That's Jacob Morris. I'm John Dales. Jacob, feels good to be back here.
Oh, it's fantastic to be back. Whole lot to cover. Excited to get to it.
Plenty to talk about. We begin in the SEC, Jacob. It just means more there, and clearly upsets mean a lot more there. This past week, plenty of upsets, including Alabama, top-ranked team in the nation, going down. Kentucky upsets Tennessee, who beat Alabama. Texas A&M is sneakily getting into the picture. What do you make of all this?
It's all over the place, and that's what's fun in college basketball. I think you could really apply that attitude to the whole entire college basketball landscape. Parity is the name of the game this year in college hoops. Specifically in the SEC, you said it, it's all over the place. You've got Alabama, Tennessee going down. Kentucky wins a couple of games finally. How about Texas A&M at 12-2 in conference? A couple big tests for the Aggies coming up. I do think when you look at this conference, it's been fun, it's been all over the place. At least for me, you've got Tennessee, you've got Alabama, and it's everybody else in terms of national contenders.
Yeah, I'd be with you there too. In Joe Lunardi's last bracket, he said 8 SEC teams get in, including 2 in the last 4 in. Look, that's fine, but when you're talking about legitimate contenders to make a deep run in March, I'm with you. You got the top 2. I think they're both in that standard of the 1A in college basketball, of the Gonzagas, the UConns, everybody else that's been good so far this season. I don't think anybody else beyond that's making a run.
And it's really interesting because, again, it's just been so all over the place. Tennessee loses to Kentucky twice. Alabama loses and then seems to beat its next opponent after a loss by 70. Texas A&M's been fun as well. I will say, I think we'll learn a bit about the Aggies. Best one is probably against the DePaul Blue Demons. So, big test for the Aggies coming up. But moving on, let's talk a team that's been on fire. Kansas smacks Baylor 87-71. All the more impressive considering the Jayhawks were down 13 at halftime. Kansas seems to have figured it out and is playing like it did at the end of last season.
This Jayhawks revenge tour is one of the most impressive things that I've seen all season, because we know the story. Right middle of the season, they lose to Kansas State, Baylor, and TCU in succession. The second time they played all 3 of those teams, they've won every single game. So it's really impressive. In this game specifically, too, Bill Self, not known to be a big soundbite guy after the game. He's not going to give you the funny soundbite. He did have a good one. He goes, look, first half, Baylor hit their tough looks. Second half, they missed their good looks.
Yeah, Kansas has found its groove, and you said it. All of the talent that we knew this team had is coming to the forefront now. Another big win against TCU tonight, and all of a sudden you look at a Kansas squad that's got 5 more quad 1 wins than anybody else in the entire country. 14 of them for Kansas right now. Jalen Wilson's been fantastic all season long, over 20 points per game. He's going to pace this team as they move towards postseason play. Regardless, Kansas has figured it out after that 3-game slide, and they look real dangerous right about now.
They certainly do. I also think they're the best team in the Big 12 right now, the way
by
that they're
far.
playing. Could be one of the best teams in the entire country. So.
Challenging for the number 1 overall seed.
Kansas, certainly going to be a team to watch out for as we get towards March Madness. Well, let's go over towards the women's side, though. A team who started out real hot and has stumbled recently. The Utah Utes just lost to Arizona in a game where Shayna Pellington of Arizona was unbelievable, dropped 35. But Utah also struggled against a 7-win Arizona State team, was able to survive in that one. I ask you this, is this an aberration or is this who this team is?
I think, once again, we talked about it a little bit with Kansas earlier on this season. You're just seeing a really good team go through a bit of growing pains. And I also think it's just let's say it, a little bit harder to play on the road than at home. You're talking about a Ute squad that's 12-0 at home, 9-3 on the road. That makes sense, right? So you lose one and you struggle against Arizona State. To me, what's important is the fact that this team beat the Sun Devils. You bounce back against an Arizona team that's been really good, but on the Wildcats side, all of a sudden making some noise in the Pac-12 as well.
They certainly are. Shayna Pellington, unbelievable in that game. She was 11 of her first 11 from the field. Second game after that, another big win for Arizona. She was fantastic. Finished those 2 games shooting 67% from the floor. But look, back to Utah too. I know you mentioned tough to win on the road, especially in conference. Also, take a look at the way their schedule was set up. They played one ranked team for the first 16 games of the year. It also doesn't help that the Pac-12 a little bit top heavy. So I think that their schedule certainly didn't do them any favors.
The only thing you can say about Utah is they have slightly fumbled the position they had right on Stanford, thinking maybe Utah's going to challenge for the Pac-12 championship. And Arizona, all of a sudden, just a couple of games out in conference play. Should be interesting down the stretch there. But speaking of competitiveness, let's go to the ACC, the most unpredictable conference in America, rather. ACC women's hoops been all over the place. An example of that, Virginia Tech takes care of business against Duke. The domino effect, now Duke and Notre Dame tied at the top of the conference. Oh yeah, Virginia Tech, winners of 6 straight, 1 game behind. It's all over the place. Who do you have in the ACC down the stretch?
I find it hard to pick against the team that's playing really good with the best player, and that's Virginia Tech. Liz Kitley is just an absolute monster out there. There's really nobody who can guard her.
Big time.
I mean, we saw it last year, even in the tournament game that they lost to the Eagles, by the way, of FGCU. She was unstoppable. I believe set a career high in that contest. So the way that Virginia Tech's playing is number 11 in the country, beating a really good Duke team pretty handedly too. I like Virginia Tech to come out of the ACC.
I will say I like Virginia Tech, I'll say this, in the ACC tournament. But with only 2 games remaining in the regular season slate, I'm going to take Notre Dame, and not just because bias pick, right? But I think Notre Dame has the easiest path left, and that it's Louisville and Georgia Tech all the way back down at the end of the standings. But let's again sing the praises of Virginia Tech. 6 straight, annihilate Duke. If you're playing well at this point in the season, it's going to bode well come postseason play.
Again, also, let's sing the praises of the ACC. All the teams we were talking about, really, really good. There's plenty of good teams below there that have just stumbled a couple of times. And, we wonder if maybe Duke falls into that category after this loss. But a lot of good teams that can make some noise, even ones that we didn't mention.
It's going to be a really fun finish to the season as well. Again, with Duke and Notre Dame tied and Virginia Tech just 1 game behind.
ACC tournament's going to be fun to watch. So is the NCAA tournament with plenty of ACC teams in it. Well, we're up against our first break here on No Pulp, but stick with us. Ryan Nelson is entering the juicer to take on Jacob right after the break. Stay with us.
Fancy pants peanut butter? A big screen television? You haven't even bought a sofa yet. A motorcycle? When your father finds out, he's gonna flip his shoes with 2 buckles? What do you even need 2 buckles for? Mr. Big Shot, buying whiskey shots for everybody in the bar. From the looks of it, I'd say nobody even remembers. Feed the pig.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it. It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.
Here we go. We're gonna go out there in the rain. Gonna get wet. All right, here we go. Oh, okay, quick. Oh yeah, yes. So much fun. Mwah. We're getting so wet.
Hey, and welcome back into No Pulp. John Dales, Jacob Morris. We're now joined by Ryan Nelson. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Look, We're doing the juicer here. Our audience is familiar with it. Last time we were on the air here, a little bit of a contentious juicer, right? I end up coming out on top, as we all know. So this time, I'm in the judge's seat, so it feels good. Jacob takes on Ryan. I'll throw out a question about college basketball. You guys each give me your answer. I award a point. That sound good?
Sounds good to me.
Sounds fantastic, Sean.
It sounds fair, too, not rigged.
Yeah,
Good,
we'll
fair, yeah. Exactly, because I'm the judge. Well, anyways, we begin with this first question. Which men's basketball conference will surprise, in a good way, come the NCAA tournament? Jacob, I start with you.
I'm going to draw a couple eye rolls with this because I'm going to go with the Big Ten. And I know the story, everybody's going to say, the counterpoint everybody's going to throw out is, hey, the Big Ten struggled in NCAA tournaments as of late, but this team is deep from top to bottom. You see it on the screen right there. 9 bids. And what's been impressive about this league is how deep it is in that it's just cannibalized itself. You've got 8 squads that are in between 9 and 7 and 7 and 9, and you have a Purdue team that's been really complete and fantastic all season long, at least until the last 4 games. So you have a squad that's going to be at the top, as in a 1 seed, and a whole bunch of other teams that are ready to cause trouble, and it's done that the whole entire season. Was fantastic in the non-con. Give me the Big Ten over whatever the heck conference you're going to give me, Ryan Nelson.
Well, I'll give you the ACC.
Oh, that's a pick.
Because
that's a pick.
Okay. Look, I'm no longer a history major, but I learned from my past mistakes. The ACC, you look at what they did last year in the tournament. 3 teams in the Elite 8, 2 in the Final 4.
Those aren't going to make the tournament.
No, they're not going to make the tournament, but this is a team with experienced coaches. I mean, Jim Larinaga, he's been along since sliced bread's been invented. This is a team, this is a conference that has, Virginia at the top of the conference. Miami's right up there as well. I like the talent front to back at the end of this conference here. And the Big Ten, in the grand scheme of things, the hot teams make it to the NCAA tournament and do well there, and Purdue's really not doing that well right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, you want to talk about the top teams in each conference? Give me Miami, second in the ACC, who got beat by Maryland by 18 earlier this season.
Look, valid points raised on each side. I like likening Jim Larinaga to sliced bread there by Ryan Nelson. But I'm going to have to go with the results of last year's tournament that tell me the Big Ten's not going to be all that impressive.
Carolina's not in the tournament.
Okay, does that mean that they're going to lose? No, it means they won't even play a game in the tournament. Ryan's up 1-0.
Thank you.
Well, folks, move on to the next question. Same question, but on the women's basketball side. Which women's basketball conference going to surprise in a good way? Ryan Nelson, we begin with you.
I am beyond confident in picking the Pac-12 here.
Okay.
The Pac-12.
I almost heard SWAC there.
The SWAC, they're staying on the sidelines. We got the Pac-12 because they're top of the conference. Stanford's up there. UCLA, Arizona. I'm going to avoid Utah at the moment. You guys said they're a good team. They're getting a little cold lately, but even the top 3 teams, Stanford, Arizona, UCLA, they're battle-tested against some really good conference competition, and the biggest loss, they're against each other. They're beating up on each other, making each other better in the end. And then one thing, too, defense wins in the NCAA tournament, and this conference has defense. Both Louisville, UConn, and South Carolina last year had top 15 defense. Stanford and UCLA both have top 30 defenses this year.
28 other teams have top 30 defenses as well, Ryan Nelson. I've got a question for you.
Sure.
Can you give me the one conference in America with 5 top 20 teams in the net rankings right now?
But it's going to be his conference.
I bet too, yeah.
It's the Big Ten.
Oh, okay.
I'm staying consistent. I'm rolling with the Big Ten, but for different reasons than what I said on the men's side. The men's side, Ryan Nelson, I told you it's because the conference is deep from top to bottom. I will. On the women's side, it's because of those 5 teams in the top 20 of the net ranking. Top heavy, all fantastic. You're talking Indiana, who has, by the way, got 1 vote at number 1 this week in the AP Top 25. Ohio State, Michigan, all these teams could cause trouble throughout. It's at the top where the Big Ten makes a real difference. And I'm going to take that 5 over the Utah in the group that you described every day of the week because there's 28 other teams that are in the top 30 of defense.
We all know Iowa last year was fantastic in the tournament.
Pick one. Yeah, really. Was Utah great in the tournament last year?
What are the teams made the Final Four in the women's basketball?
Utah was a 7 seed last year. We can pick and choose all we want.
Where? Stanford was there last year.
I'm here to stand back and let you guys cook. You're doing well there. I like the arguments you're getting in. I thought about this question long and hard because 2 good answers, and ultimately it came down to I like the 2 top teams in the Big Ten better than the 2 top teams in the Pac-12. So Jacob Morris has tied it up. We're even at 1 apiece. Folks, now let's go to the other side. Let's, bury a couple of teams here because we're ready for a couple of conferences. Which men's hoops conference will disappoint come March Madness, Jacob?
It's the Big 12, and that's because, quite frankly, It's Kansas, and then it's everybody else in this conference. There was a whole lot of excitement from college basketball analysts across the country, Carson Fowler included. When the beginning of the conference slate, we were talking about 10 teams all projected to make the NCAA tournament. That's because these teams beat up on poor programs in the non-con, and now they're sort of cannibalizing themselves. Kansas is fantastic. Kansas is going to cause real issues, but the question is, what conference as a whole is going to cause issues, is going to disappoint? It's going to be the Big 12, top to bottom.
Frankly, I disagree. You guys are just talking about
I'm glad you do. I would hope you do.
The SEC. This conference, it means less, honestly, this year, because 7 or 8 bids, what you guys were talking about earlier, and I don't see any of those bids really making a long-term push.
Alabama.
Everyone's hyping up Alabama.
Tennessee.
They just made a huge loss. Tennessee has lost 4 of their last 6 games. We all know hot teams do well in the tournament. Tennessee is ice cold right now.
Texas
Kentucky
A&M's hot.
Kentucky is 2-4 against top 25 teams, and A&M lost to Wofford this season. I don't like this. This ain't your grandmother's Arkansas team either. I really don't like this conference, and they struggle in the tournament too.
My grandmother did tell me. She said the Razorbacks are really bad this season. Look, good answer as well. But I do say I just think that it's Alabama and nobody else, so I'm going to go with the SEC.
Who is it in the Big 12? Kansas and who else?
I'm just saying. You got a chance to win.
All right,
okay.
give it to me. Come on.
Last chance. This question is worth 2. Women's hoop side, which women's basketball conference will disappoint? Ryan Nelson, you have the win in your grasp.
Give us the wrong answer.
I've been said that I have bold answers. You gotta go bold or you go home. Bold.
Bold.
Okay.
You either go bold or you go home. That's why the ACC is going to disappoint in the NCAA tournament.
Oh.
They're top heavy. You were mentioning it earlier with your teams you didn't like. They're too top heavy, and they're going to topple right over like the giant they are. They don't have well-rounded enough teams. Duke is all defense. FSU is only offense. The only well-rounded team is Virginia Tech, and even then, they lost to Florida Gulf Coast. John, I know you love to bring up that up.
They're a good team.
They lost to Florida Gulf Coast last season in the tournament. I don't see this as a conference that's going to have a team make the Elite 8 or Final 4 and really push for a championship.
You said bold strategies are what you're all about. I would describe it as a bold strategy when you just said the ACC was top heavy, when about 5 minutes ago this man said there's a lot of good teams under the top echelon of the ACC. For me, I'm going to give you the right answer, and it's the Big East. And I'm going to go back to a trend we've talked about this whole entire juicer, and it's there's somebody at the top, and that somebody's UConn, and there's nobody else. I think UConn's a bit overrated, but UConn's going to be there. We'll give UConn. But then you start moving down the stretch, and you've got Villanova, who has 20-plus wins, 5 losses, and you say it's a really good Nova squad. Princeton, the best out-of-conference win. Everything else has come in the Big East. You move on to Creighton, whose best non-con win is 14-13 Nebraska. Listen, in-state rivalries, they just mean more. I get that, but it's not a great Nebraska squad. The Big East right now has 5 teams that are projected to get into the NCAA tournament. You're looking at 4 first-round losses and a UConn team that's got upset written all over them. Give me the Big East, not the ACC, which is unequivocally the best conference in women's basketball.
And I quote, the ACC is all over the place from about 5 minutes ago.
In a good way. A lot of good teams in that conference.
No.
All right, plenty of good teams. Look, you said FGCU. You played to my strengths, my heartstrings. And JMO, I do have to say I disagree about UConn. I think UConn is not that good. They're going to lose. So is the rest of the Big East. So Jacob gets the point, and Jacob gets the win. You know, I had to distract you. Throw you down the wrong trail there. You competed hard, Ryan.
I
appreciate it.
Bold strategy.
Go bold or you
Over
go home.
3. It's fine.
Well, folks, that's Ryan Nelson's appearance in the Juicer. Coming up on the other end of the break, though, we're going to talk about the biggest upsets of the year. We're going to let you know who beat who and how it changed the entire landscape of college basketball. All that and more coming up right after the break.
I see you mobbing over her. Let's go. Let's mob. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, we mobbing. Come on, girl. Let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl. Hey, let's crawl. Hey, yo, let's crawl.
Look at you. You're at the top of your game. You're unstoppable. Nothing can throw you off track. Wait, is that your car? Uh-oh. Yeah, I saw that coming. That will throw you off track. You're looking at around 10 grand in fines, legal fees, and increased insurance rates. Let's try this again. Smart move. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Welcome back to No Pulp. That's John Dales. I'm Jacob Morris. I am also victorious in the juicer, but that's not the point. We're moving on and talking upsets. Somehow, some way, we're already just about ready to put a bow on the college basketball regular season. There's been a whole lot of fun upsets. There'll be a whole lot more in the NCAA tournament. But give me one, and we'll both give two, that's changed the landscape a little bit.
I'm going to take you back to November 9th. You feel a little chilly, feel like college football season's still going on. Well, you might forget that on November 9th, Louisville lost to Bellarmine 67-66 in each of their team's first games of the season. Now you're saying to me, John, why is this such a big upset? Louisville's terrible this season. Well, Louisville brought in 3 different 4-star recruits this past offseason. Bellarmine doesn't even have a recruiting page on 247sports.com.
Not a great strat.
Bellarmine also, after this game, you say, oh, maybe that's a good team. They go on to have a good season. 13-16 so far this season. That's not a good Knights team. They still win at Louisville. I love that move, by the way. That's the John Dale's coaching move, throwing the moon ball all the way down the court to let the clock expire. That's what we start with. Huge upset, and it really changed the entire season for Louisville because from that point forward, you just could never get the train back on the tracks.
A sign of what was to come for Louisville big time. I'm going to stay with you, and we're staying in November as well. We're talking Northwestern State, 64-63 winners over TCU. Listen, TCU made it all the way to the national championship game in football. That's great, but on the basketball court, it was a squad that was ranked 14th in the country coming into the season, and all of a sudden, Northwestern State comes down to Fort Worth and takes care of business. Really impressive for a Northwestern State program that hasn't made the NCAA tournament since 2013. And listen, they've been better than expected. They were ranked 350th in KenPom going into that game. They're second in the Southland right now, but still, ultimately, impressive from Northwestern State. TCU's got it back under control. They've been pretty good this season, but that one was fun and I think just a sign of what was to come. Crazy college basketball year so far.
Northwestern State.
Not Northwestern.
Exactly, yeah, not the Wildcats. Big upset win. Well, let's go towards Northwestern. Not Northwestern, though. Let's go to Chicagoland. Let's go to the DePaul Blue Demons on January 18th. Look, I watched the game on your phone, and DePaul upset Xavier, who was the number 8 team in the land at that point. Biggest upset, really, of the Big East season, and I'll tell you why. Coming into that game, Xavier was the number 8 team in the nation and had won 11 games in a row. DePaul, coming into that game, had lost 6 of its last 8. But somehow DePaul is able to pull off the upset at Wintrust Arena. Maybe it's just the magic of Wintrust Arena. I think that's what it was. And from that point forward, Xavier's been 5-3, so it certainly has kind of put a halt in their season and shown that they're not a top 10 team. Meanwhile, DePaul has not won a game since that contest.
Big time upset. Listen, I don't do product placement, but shout out to Fagan's Wi-Fi for allowing that game to be watched. The Blue Demons with a big upset over Xavier there. I've got one more for you, and let's just stay in the Midwest. We're talking Eastern Illinois, 92-83, taking down Iowa on December 21st. The Hawkeyes came in the 5th most efficient offense in the entire country, jumped out to an 18-2 lead, and then Eastern Illinois took care of business. 55 points in the second half. And same as you kind of talked about with Bellarmine, it's like, all right, so you think Eastern Illinois, it's a great Panther squad this year? 9-20, 9th, second to last in the Ohio Valley. Inexplicable for Iowa. It really threw the Hawkeyes into a bit of a spiral as well. Lost to Nebraska and Penn State, 2 straight losses after the game. Unbelievable. Eastern Illinois took care of business. Iowa did not.
Eastern Illinois and DePaul should probably play against each other to see who's the best Illinois bad team.
We could do like a 4-game bracket between all these upset squads, see who comes out on top.
That wouldn't be bad. I would like that.
I think we should make it happen. Regardless, time for another break here on No Pulp. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're talking plays of the week. Plus, as always, John and I give our final words.
Stand is precise. No margin for error.
Dare to forget that. Dare to have fun with it. Get weird with it. Dare to send those old STEM theories flying past the neighbor's house into outer space. Dare to program something internet-breaking, record-breaking. Dare to blow their minds. Dare to learn the difference between sedimentary and metamorphic rock. Go find those rocks. Dare to keep daring. Dare to STEM. Check out She Can STEM to get started.
Welcome back inside the Citrus TV studio. No Pulp is back. Unfortunately, John Dales has abandoned me, but that's okay. We're talking plays of the week, and for mine, let's head to beautiful South Bend. Notre Dame and Louisville matching up. Pivotal ACC matchup. Notre Dame's got to win to stay alive in the ACC race, and enter Olivia Miles. A buzzer beater in overtime. Might have got away with a little bit of a travel, but regardless, makes it happen. Unbelievable finish in South Bend. Notre Dame in prime position, John Dales, to come back in the ACC.
That they are. Thank you, Jacob. And for my play of the week, let's stick in ACC territory, but let's go down to Coral Gables. Miami playing against Wake Forest, and take a look at this steal and then slam by Nigel Peck. First, he gets the steal on defense, tips it to himself. Pretty nice dunk here, right? You say, how is that the play of the week? Take a look at his teammate, Anthony Walker, after this. That's how you support your teammate. Jacob, I'm waiting on you to do that in reaction to one of the things that I say.
I'll do that to your final word, I can promise you.
I appreciate that. Well, folks, now it's time for everybody's favorite segment. It's the No Pulp Game of the Week.
It's time for the No Pulp Game of the Week.
And this week, the No Pulp Game of the Week takes us to women's basketball. Indiana against Iowa, number 2 against number 6. Jacob, who do you like here?
I've got the Hawkeyes.
Really?
Caitlin Clark is on the floor, and quite frankly, that's all that matters for me. The Hoosiers have been fantastic all season long. It's been really impressive, but I like the Hawkeyes to pull the upset on Caitlin Clark. She's been fantastic all season long. She plays her best in big games.
Yeah, I also like Caitlin Clark in Iowa. I think a game like this, I was proven wrong a couple of weeks ago when we had a big SEC contest. I think the home court really makes the difference. I picked LSU to win that game on the road against South Carolina. They did not. They got blown out. I like Iowa to win this one as well. Well, folks, for my final word, I unfortunately have to bring up a sad story. And you might have missed it this past Saturday, but Hartford, the Hartford Hawks from the America East Conference, played their final game as a D1 program, a 75-53 loss to Chicago State. And you ask yourself, how did this happen? Well, University of Hartford President Gregory Woodward, he's the one who spearheaded this transition, and it was a decision that was made immediately after the men's basketball team made their first NCAA tournament a couple of years ago. And you ask yourself, well, who is this guy who put a stop to this program playing in the Division I level? Well, there was a story that came out that he lied on his resume about playing D1 sports when he was in college, lied about being in his high school's Hall of Fame. I don't think he should be in charge of an athletic program like that. And it really shouldn't have ended this way. It shouldn't have ended with a whimper in mid-February for the Hartford Hawks. They deserve better.
John Dales, you're exactly right. Hartford put up a game against Baylor in that first-round matchup in the NCAA tournament as well. For my final word, we're talking the number 1 team in the country. And if you're like me, you might be racking your head right now asking yourself, who on earth is number 1 right now? And that's the larger point. Number 1 has been a curse this season. Let's not get started on UNC, but Houston, Purdue, Alabama, Houston again, Purdue again. It's been a revolving door, and it's not worth getting excited about anymore. It's just a fat target on your back, and it's nothing more than a little number to the left of your name. I don't think the number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament is all that important anyways, but even that won't be decided until conference championship weekend. College basketball hasn't had this much parity in a real long time, and that's a good thing. This is an example of it. Number 1 doesn't mean anything. Good thing for college basketball.
Doesn't mean anything? Really?
I'm just saying, when you're talking about a sport that's dominated by parity, it's a good thing, first and foremost, and it just means that everybody's going to be shooting for you all the more.
Number 1 seed mean anything in the tournament? You're nervous if
I want a 1 seed.
Okay.
I don't really put that much stock in the number 1 overall seed. That's just me.
1-16 matchup doesn't scare you, huh?
No.
All right. Well, folks, Jacob Morris is not afraid. He infamously said not afraid of North Texas. We'll see what happens this year. Alongside Jacob Morris, I'm John Dale saying thanks so much for joining us.